Hey, everybody. Today I have for you podcast number 57. Today's podcast is titled Directionally Challenged. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. I am Dr. Pete Lombardi, and this is the Limitless Life Network, where we flesh out the limitations that are preventing you from reaching your goals and living the life that you were called to lead. So I want to once again thank all you people this week that contacted us and sent us some just positive feedback. Did have one person that doesn't like the outro music. Oh, so disappointed. And that's okay, because she endures it because she loves the message, and I really love and appreciate her for that. So love the feedback. It is super encouraging. So thank you so much for making the comments. And for those of you that want to share, go ahead, share it with somebody else. You can just send it along to somebody in your list or friends that you like to bring an uplifting message to. And hit the subscribe button if you're a first-time listener. So welcome. Thank you for giving us a bit of your time in your day. And we try to keep it to that short window in that 20-minute time frame. It's really not always perfect, but we try to stay on track with that. And today, you notice my wife is not here. She's been on the podcast quite a bit, and she's super busy this week as we have lots of people staying in the house, big family, lots of people in the house. So she's right now at a soccer game. So I'm doing the podcast without her tonight. All right, today's podcast titled Directionally Challenged, and this is a cool backstory. Today, I was loaning out my normal vehicle that I drive, and I decided to drive this old pickup truck that I got, this vintage pickup truck, to the office and back. And as I was driving back, it's a little rough, this vehicle. It's back in the early 70s. They didn't make them like they do today. And it's standard, and I'm, driving down the highway. But I needed gas, because those 70s vehicles, boy, they drank some gas. So pull in the gas station, and I'm looking for a spot to wheel this big rig in there. And I see this white truck in front of me, and there's a spot behind it. And I'm pulling in, and I look, and I know the person. And so I go to hit the horn. I'm like, oh, darn it, the horn doesn't work on this. I forgot. So I rev the motor, and the person doesn't look at me, and they just jump in their vehicle, and they're ready to drive away. So I stop, and I jump out, and I run up to their vehicle, and they look in the rearview mirror, and they see me running at them, and they realize that it's me. And it happened to be one of our special friends and a previous guest on the podcast, Mrs. Katrina Potter. And if you remember her, she's just full of energy. She's always got a smile on her face, and she was excited. She opens up her door, and we started chatting about how just funny it was that I pulled up in this old vehicle behind her and kind of scared her. Anyway, as we were chatting, we were talking about how homeschooling was going with our kids and so forth. And she said, I got a few minutes before my next engagement. I think I'm just going to go grab a coffee, she said. And I'm like, oh, where are you going to go? And she's like, oh, probably next door to this place over here that has this chemically laden coffee crap. She wasn't real happy about it. I won't name the chain that was right next to the gas station. And I said, why don't you try going to the Coffee Tree in Cheryl? You've got time. It's only a 5-minute drive down the road. And she's like, where is it in Cheryl? And Cheryl is a small town. I mean, there's literally just, it's tiny. I'm like, just drive into Cheryl. You'll find it. You're not going to get lost. And she's like, I actually did kind of get turned around in Cheryl one time. I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, when it comes to homeschooling, I guess I'm going to have my husband, Matt, do the geography lessons. And, we joked about it. And anyway, so I think that she did end up going. I haven't confirmed that yet, but great coffee at the Coffee Tree. There's a plug for this local business, and I guess her husband Matt's gonna be teaching geography. But this just brief encounter with Miss Katrina allowed me to come up with 5 great points today to share with you, our loyal listeners. The first one is this: coincidence, or is God placing people in your path with a purpose? So, was there a purpose to this? And is it just a coincidence? Is it a random thing that you run into people? Or were those people, is it part of more of an important plan? Is it part of what God's design is? And some people will, I've heard it said that the universe is conspiring on my behalf. And that's a great way to look at things. But to me, like when I hear the universe, okay, well, who made the universe? And I think, well, the universe has got order and there's a design to it. So if there's an intentional order and design to the universe, there has to be an intentional designer to the universe. And to me, that's God, right? So the creator of our universe. So things to me in this situation, again, this is the way I'm seeing it through my lens, is that there is a tremendous amount of order. So I do believe that God is conspiring on my behalf, and as long as I'm faithful to being open to following His lead, not my lead. So that's point number one. Look for those places in your life. Have your radar up for that. For those times when God is placing people in your path for a reason. This morning I had a conversation with a couple of colleagues of mine that I meet every Tuesday morning on an accountability call, and one of them has also been on the podcast, Dr. G. And it was over a year ago that he and I were both at a seminar, and after meeting a very famous MMA wrestler, Michael Chandler, we were on a break, and I noticed that after everybody kind of left the whole room, like we were on to like lunch or something, I saw Dr. G was speaking with this other chiropractor from Las Vegas. And I went up to him because I want to see what he wanted to do for lunch. And I noticed that he and this other chiropractor, Dr. Chris Colgan, Chris was showing him all these different short video clips that were edited, and it was really cool. And Chris was getting all kinds of traction from this. And he's like, yeah, I found this guy in Armenia that does these editing things, that edits these clips, and his name is Toros. And so next thing you know, Dr. G starts hiring this guy from Armenia that edits his video clips, and he ends up putting out all this great content on social media, and it goes viral. And because he's got some great content. And then he hires this woman to help him organize his business. So he's got a bunch of different businesses. And so he hires this woman that I've met before as well. And she lives in Las Vegas. Well, this woman decides that she wants to go to a new chiropractor just recently, last week. And she ends up walking into this office where there's a bunch of chiropractors working, and she's getting adjusted, and she gets a great adjustment. She really likes it. And this chiropractor is talking about this doctor that does blood chemistry. And she's like, oh, I work for a guy that does a lot of that blood chemistry stuff. I handle a lot of his business stuff. And then this other guy is talking about Dr. G, and she works for Dr. G. And lo and behold, here they are a year and a half later, connected this way. So, and it's amazing how many times that God puts people in your path, and you have no idea how we're all connected. So, but he does. There's order to this. So point number 2 is this from the story of meeting up with Katrina Potter today. Is we often will settle for less than the best because we're just not sure where to go. So yeah, she was ready to settle for less than the best when it came to her coffee selection, and probably because it was easy, probably because it was simple, probably because it was convenient, right? And so when you think about those adjectives, easy, simple, convenient, or maybe even safe, like, yeah, and there's brand recognition, I know what I'm going to get kind of thing. It's not great, but it's going to be okay, right? So what happens with lower expectations? Lower expectations yield lower experiences. So your level of experience is going to be very vanilla-ish, and you're pretty much okay with that because you didn't have high expectations to begin with, right? So your expectations are kind of just satisfied. What happens when you raise your expectations? When you have higher expectations, you actually increase the probability or the likelihood of a higher level experience. So I notice I didn't say that your higher expectations give you a higher experience, because it doesn't guarantee that you'll have a higher experience. Higher expectations increase the probability of it. Lower expectations pretty much not only increase the probability, but it's almost a guaranteed across the board that it's going to be a lower expectation situation. Very rarely are your low expectation adventures going to turn out to be high expectation returns. That's very rare. It's more likely that having higher expectations, you're going to take the actions and you're going to take the steps to have a greater experience in the outcome. So what's the moral of all this verbal, sleight of hand with words? Higher expectations is going to give you a greater opportunity. That's to a greater existence on the planet. So too many times people keep their expectations so low. And I'm telling you, I'm giving you the permission to raise your expectations. Raise your expectations. You deserve it more than anybody. Okay. Point number three. Point number three is this: that, you know what? Guides love to guide. I've yet to meet a guide that doesn't enjoy guiding, right? What's the purpose of a guide? The purpose of a guide is to show you something that you would have never been able to find out on your own, right? So yes, could Katrina have stumbled across this other coffee shop? Yeah, if she was looking, very easily, if she Googled coffee shops, but she wasn't even thinking about that. But along comes the guide, just happenstance, and I say, hey, try this place out, make a recommendations, right? And she didn't ask me for a recommendation. I just offered it, right? Because I like to see somebody have a greater experience. But back in 2012, I went on a guided hunting trip. Now, I had never been on a guided hunting trip. This was kind of a thing that fell into my lap, and I jumped on it. I didn't hesitate, and I went on this hunting trip up in Alaska, and it was amazing. It was a once in a lifetime experience for me. Not that I'm saying I won't ever go on another guided hunting experience again, but this was everything that I was hoping it would be, and probably even more. So what did these guides do? They were prepared. They were well versed in everything about this experience. They were well geared. There was a lot of preparation on their part ahead of time. And what I'm getting at here is that if there's something that you want to have leveled up in your life, there are people out there that have a ton of experience that if you hire them, they will take you there so quickly. If I could have done it differently. Now, this was a moose hunting expedition. After day one of actually hunting, I had already shot a trophy moose, and the next days were about us processing it and getting it out of there. But once I was all said and done did all the hunting part of it, I still had time to kill, and it was just a really cool adventure. But on one of the last days right before we left, there were people that came into our camp that floated down the river in a little boat, a blow up boat, and they had suffered a horrible time in the cold weather, and they were on a self-guided moose hunt. And they really just got lucky that they came into our camp, because not only was it cold, but it actually snowed like 7 inches. And our guides actually saved these guys by giving them a tent and a stove, and got them basically warm and out of their wet clothes. And we had an airstrip there that the guides had made so that a plane could come in and pick them up and get them out of there. It was, A guide it can take you somewhere so much quicker than you can get on your own. Will it cost you something? Absolutely, probably. But it all depends on what you're looking to do. But yeah, if you want a higher level experience, a guide can do that for you. Point number 4 is this: new experiences open new doors, and I think we all know that. But if you're not looking for new experiences, then without more open doors, then you're limiting your opportunities. And so the whole point of this podcast is to stretch your mind a little bit and to live a life with less limitations. So it's the Limitless Life Network, right? So um, new experiences lead to new possibilities, and new possibilities lead to new opportunities, and new opportunities can mean a whole expansive life that you would have never dreamed would even existed before. But you'll never experience those with low expectations. You'll never have new experiences without leaving your comfort zone, so to speak. So look for new experiences. Don't shy away from new experiences. Say yes to new experiences, and and see what God has in store for you. And point number 5 is a really good one that I learned a long time ago while hunting in the big woods of the Adirondacks, and that is trust your compass. And this is super important, and I talk about this a lot. And your compass is something that in the dark it still works, because the magnetism of the Earth's pole directs the needle in the same direction no matter where you're standing, unless you're next to some metal that can influence it. But the compass itself is going to always be correct. And with that being said, setting your compass every day, like picking a direction. That's what people struggle with this, is that they don't have a true direction. They're not sure where north really is in their life. God gives you that. God is the true north, right? He's willing and ready and able to lead you if you're just allowing yourself to pay attention to your compass. And so each and every day, no matter what it is, if it's a goal, then stick to the goal. But today, and just like in the woods, like you can be walking through the big woods and you can be distracted. You can start to daydream and you can look around. And the next thing you know, you're not really following the compass anymore. You've wandered away from your heading. And to get back on track, you have to reorient yourself. You have to find out where you are again. And then from there, set your compass, and then follow the lead there. Follow the true north there. So, yeah, those are our points today, all from a unusual meeting up with a friend. And trust your compass, stay on course, but most importantly, trust God in all things. So that's all we have for this week's edition of your weekly Limitless Life Network podcast. Be sure to stay tuned each and every week, as you know that we're going to always be putting out another great podcast, and we want to keep you inspired and keep you moving toward living your best life by stripping away your limitations. And we will see you back here again next week for another episode.